Taiho stood at the edge of the grand ceremonial hall, his hands sweating inside his formal gloves. The year was 2287, and he was about to do something no human had ever done before. He was going to marry an alien. The hall was enormous, built by the Velans to accommodate both species. Massive crystal columns rose toward a ceiling that showed the stars above through transparent panels. Hundreds of guests filled the space. On one side sat humans from Earth and the colonies, dressed in their finest clothes. On the other side sat the Velans, tall and elegant in their flowing robes. Every single Velan wore a mask. Not the simple masks humans might wear to a party, but intricate biomasks that covered their entire faces with shifting patterns and colors. Taiho's brother, Jiho, stood beside him, adjusting Taiho's collar for the third time. Jiho was a military intelligence officer, and he had argued against this marriage for months. But Taiho had made his choice. "You can still back out," Jiho whispered. "Nobody would blame you." Taiho shook his head. "This is bigger than me. You know that." It was true. This marriage was part of a peace treaty between humanity and the Velan Empire. The Velans had saved humanity during the Great Void War, when an unknown enemy had attacked Earth's colonies. The Velans arrived with superior technology and military power, driving the attackers away. They asked for very little in return, just friendship and cooperation. This marriage was meant to seal that bond. Music began to play, a strange blend of human and Velan instruments. Taiho walked to the center of the hall where a platform waited. His heart pounded in his chest. He had chosen to do this, had volunteered when the Earth government asked for someone to marry a Velan noble. As a xenobiologist who studied alien life, he thought he understood what he was getting into. But now, standing here, he wondered if he had made a terrible mistake. The Velan bride appeared at the far end of the hall. Even from a distance, Taiho could see she was different from other Velans. She was shorter, closer to human height. Her robes were deep blue, almost black, and covered with silver embroidery. And her biomask was the most elaborate he had ever seen. It covered her entire face with a surface that looked like liquid metal, constantly shifting and flowing with patterns that hurt to look at directly. Her name was Rena. That was all he knew. They had communicated through holographic projections during their brief courtship. Her voice was soft and musical, her manner polite but distant. She had never removed her mask during their conversations, not even for a moment. "Velan custom," she explained. "Unmarried females must keep their faces hidden." Rena walked toward him slowly, accompanied by two Velan attendants. Taiho noticed something odd. She kept glancing to the side, toward a group of Velan officials seated in the front row. One of them, an elderly Velan with gold markings on his robes, stared at her with what Taiho could only describe as hostility. Even without seeing facial expressions, body language told him plenty. When Rena reached the platform, she stood across from him. Up close, he could see her biomask more clearly. Strange symbols flickered across its surface, appearing and disappearing. He had studied Velan writing for months, but these symbols were nothing he recognized. The ceremony began. A human diplomat named Hana spoke first, talking about unity and friendship between species. Then a Velan elder spoke in their musical language, which was translated through devices everyone wore. Taiho barely heard the words. He kept watching Rena, trying to understand the person behind the mask. He noticed her hands were shaking. The vows were simple. Both species had agreed on words that meant something to each culture. Taiho spoke his part clearly, promising to honor and respect his bride, to build a bridge between their peoples. When Rena spoke, her voice trembled slightly. She promised the same things, but Taiho heard something else in her tone. Fear. Why would she be afraid at her own wedding? The ceremony concluded with a traditional exchange of gifts. Taiho gave Rena a crystal from Earth, shaped into a flower. She gave him a small device that projected star maps, showing the vast territory of the Velen Empire. Then they were pronounced married, and the hall erupted in applause and cheers from both sides. But before they could leave the platform, the elderly Velen with gold markings approached them. He moved with authority, and other Velens quickly made way for him. Taiho's translation device identified him as Elder Kelver, a high-ranking member of the Velen government. Elder Kelver ignored Taiho completely. He leaned close to Rena and spoke in a low voice. The translation device picked up his words, meant only for Rena, but heard clearly by Taiho. "Remember what you are," Kelver said. "Remember what happens if you forget your place." Rena's whole body went rigid. She nodded once, quickly, and Kelver walked away. Taiho wanted to ask what that meant, but the crowd was pressing in, offering congratulations. Jiho appeared at his side, eyes sharp and suspicious. He had heard the exchange too. The reception was held in another hall, this one filled with food from both worlds. Taiho tried to stay close to Rena, but she was constantly surrounded by Velen nobles, all speaking to her in rapid voices. He caught glimpses of her through the crowd, always standing stiffly, always with that shaking in her hands. Hours passed. Finally, the celebration ended. Taiho and Rena were escorted to their new home, a habitat specially designed for both species. It was located in the diplomatic quarter of Valara Prime, the Velen capital world. The habitat had separate areas for each of them, with a shared common space in the middle. Once inside, alone for the first time, Rena immediately moved to her private quarters. She paused at the door and turned back to Taiho. Even through the mask, he felt her looking at him. "Thank you," she said quietly, "for agreeing to this." "I wanted to," Taiho said. "I believe in what we're building here." Rena was silent for a moment. "I hope you still believe that tomorrow, and the day after, and all the days to come." Before he could ask what she meant, she disappeared into her room. The door sealed behind her with a soft hiss. Taiho stood alone in the common area, looking around at his new life. Through the windows, he could see the Velen city stretching out below, all gleaming towers and flowing bridges. Beautiful and alien and completely foreign. What had he gotten himself into? That night, lying in his bed, Taiho heard something through the walls. It sounded like crying. Soft, muffled, but definitely the sound of someone weeping. It was coming from Rena's room. He wanted to go to her, to offer comfort, but something told him she wouldn't welcome it. Not yet. So he lay there listening, wondering what secret pain his new wife carried, and why Elder Kelver's words had affected her so deeply. Sleep came slowly, filled with uneasy dreams of masks and hidden faces. 3 weeks passed in the shared habitat, and Taiho felt like he was living with a ghost. Rena was always polite, always proper, but she kept a distance between them. It felt like a wall. They ate meals together in silence. They made small talk about the weather and the news, but they never spoke about anything real. Taiho tried to understand. He spent his days working at the Xenobiology Research Center, studying Velen plant life and helping human scientists adapt to this new world. In the evenings, he would return home to find Rena in the common area, reading from Velen data tablets or watching entertainment programs. She never removed her biomask. She wore it while eating, the mask somehow allowing food to pass through. She wore it while sleeping, he assumed, though he had never seen inside her private quarters. His friend Do-Yun visited often. Do-Yun was a data archaeologist, someone who dug through old computer systems and forgotten databases, looking for lost information. He was fascinated by Velen culture and couldn't resist asking Rena questions whenever he came over. "Why do your people hide your faces?" Do-Yun asked during one visit, his curiosity getting the better of his manners. Rena stiffened. It is our way. It has always been our way. But why? Do-Yoon pressed. There must be a reason. Some traditions don't need reasons, Rena said quietly. They simply are. After Do-Yoon left, Tayo apologized for his friend's rudeness. Rena waved it away. He's curious. That's natural. But some questions have no good answers. Tayo wanted to push further, to ask what she meant. But before he could, Rena excused herself and retreated to her room. That same week, Tayo met a human scientist named Yuna, who worked in the biological research division. She was studying villain genetics, trying to understand how their biology worked. Over lunch in the research center cafeteria, she shared something strange. I've been comparing villain DNA samples with human samples, Yuna said, keeping her voice low. There are similarities. Lots of them. More than there should be. What do you mean? Tayo asked. DNA from different planets shouldn't look alike, Yuna explained. We evolved separately, under completely different conditions. But Velen DNA has markers, sequences, that are eerily similar to human genetic patterns. It's like looking at cousins instead of completely unrelated species. Tayo frowned. Could it be convergent evolution? Species developing similar traits independently? Yuna shook her head. Not like this. These are specific genetic markers, not just general similarities. It's almost like someone designed both species using the same blueprint. The conversation stuck with Tayo for days. He started noticing other odd things. How villains and humans could eat some of the same foods. How their body language, despite the masks, seemed familiar. How their emotional responses appeared similar to human emotions. One evening, Tayo came home late from the research center. It was past midnight, and he assumed Rena would be asleep. He entered the habitat quietly, not wanting to disturb her. The lights were dimmed to night mode, casting soft shadows. As he walked past Rena's quarters, he heard a sound. A mechanical whirring, followed by a gasp. Then Rena's voice, speaking urgently in Velen. The translation device in his ear caught the words. No, not now. Please work, please. Concerned, Tayo knocked on her door. Rena, are you okay? Don't come in. Her voice was panicked. Please, stay out. But the door wasn't fully sealed. It was slightly open, and through the gap, Tayo could see flashing lights. Something was wrong with her biomask. It was sparking, malfunctioning. Without thinking, acting on instinct to help, Tayo pushed the door open. Rena, if you're hurt. He froze. Rena stood in the middle of her room, hands raised to her face. Her biomask hung halfway off, sparking and dead. And beneath it, Tayo saw her true face. She was human. Completely, perfectly human. But that wasn't what made him gasp. It was whose face she had. The face he saw was identical to someone he knew. Someone he had loved. Someone who had died 3 years ago in the war. Minji? The name escaped his lips before he could stop it. Rena's eyes went wide with terror. She grabbed the broken biomask and pressed it back against her face, but it wouldn't seal. She turned away from him, her whole body shaking. Get out, she whispered. Please, Tayo, get out. He stood frozen, his mind refusing to process what he had seen. Minji had died when her colony ship was attacked. He had mourned her for months. And now here was Rena, wearing Minji's exact face. I don't understand, Tayo said. You look like... I know what I look like. Rena's voice broke. Please, just leave. Forget what you saw. You have to forget. How can I forget? Rena, what's going on? She grabbed a cloth and wrapped it around her face, hiding herself. When she turned back to him, her eyes were visible above the cloth, and they were filled with tears. "You've doomed us both," she said. "By seeing my face, you've doomed us both." Tai-Ho took a step toward her, but she backed away. "Talk to me, please. I can help." "No one can help," Rena said. "Not anymore. They'll know. They always know when someone sees. Who will know? The Velen government?" Rena laughed, but it was a bitter, broken sound. "The government. Elder Kelver. Everyone who wants to keep the secret buried. Oh, Tai-Ho, I tried so hard to protect you. I kept my distance. I never let you close. And now it's all for nothing." "What secret?" Tai-Ho demanded. "Rena, I'm your husband. Whatever this is, we face it together." She looked at him for a long moment. Then, slowly, she unwrapped the cloth from her face. Let him see her fully. Yes, she looked exactly like Minji. The same eyes, the same nose, the same mouth. But as Tai-Ho looked closer, he saw small differences. The shape of her ears was slightly off. Her skin tone was a bit different. She looked like Minji's twin, but not quite identical. "I'm a throwback," Rena said quietly. "Do you know what that means?" Tai-Ho shook his head. "It means I'm a mistake," she said. "A genetic defect. Something that shouldn't exist. And if the Velan authorities find out you've seen me, they'll kill us both." Before Tai-Ho could respond, an alarm sounded. A soft beeping from the habitat security system. Someone had accessed the surveillance logs. Someone knew what had just happened. Rena's face went pale. "They know. They're already watching. Tai-Ho, listen to me very carefully. In the next few hours, Valen security will come. They'll ask you questions. You must tell them you saw nothing. That my mask malfunctioned, but you looked away. Do you understand?" "I won't lie," Tai-Ho said. "Not about this." "Then we're both dead," Rena said flatly. The doorbell chimed. Both of them froze. It was the middle of the night. No one should be visiting. "Go to your room," Rena whispered urgently. "Act like you were asleep. I'll handle this." But Tai-Ho didn't move. Instead, he walked to the door and opened it. 3 Velen security officers stood outside. Behind them was Elder Kelver, his golden robes gleaming even in the dim hallway light. "Tai-Ho of Earth," Kelver said formally. "We need to speak with you and your wife about a security matter. May we come in?" It wasn't really a question. They were already moving into the habitat. Tai-Ho glanced back at Rena. She had managed to secure a temporary mask over her face, but her hands were still shaking. Her eyes met his, and in them, he saw resignation. She had given up, but Tai-Ho hadn't. Whatever secret she was hiding, whatever danger they were in, he wasn't going to let her face it alone. "Of course," Tai-Ho said to Kelver. "Please, come in. Though I'm not sure what security matter requires. A visit at this hour." Kelver's masked face tilted toward. "Rena, I think you know exactly what matter. We're here to discuss the..." Confrontation with Elder Kelver lasted 3 hours. He asked the same questions over and over. What had Tai-Ho seen? Had Rena's mask come completely off? Did Tai-Ho understand the severity of violating Velen privacy customs? Tai-Ho stuck to a simple story. He heard Rena call out, worried she was hurt, opened the door. Her mask was sparking, but still mostly in place. He saw nothing unusual, just his concerned wife trying to fix a broken device. Kelver didn't believe him. That much was obvious. But without proof, without Tai-Ho admitting to seeing Rena's face, Kelver couldn't act. The peace treaty between humans and Velens was too fragile. Arresting a human diplomat's brother-in-law without cause would create an incident. Finally, Kelver left. But his last words were a clear threat. "We will be watching Tai-Ho of Earth very closely watching. Any violation of our customs, any inappropriate curiosity, and the consequences will be severe. For both of you. After they left, Rena collapsed onto the couch. Taiho sat beside her, but didn't touch her. He had so many questions he didn't know where to start. "Thank you," Rena whispered, "for not telling them." "I need the truth," Taiho said. "All of it? What's a throwback? Why do you look human? What is Kelver so desperate to hide?" Rena was quiet for a long time. Then she stood and walked to the window, looking out at the Velan city below. "I can't tell you," she said. "It's too dangerous. More dangerous than what just happened?" "Yes," Rena said simply. "Much more dangerous. If you knew the truth, Taiho, you would become a target. They would have to eliminate you. At least right now, you're just a suspicious human who might have seen something. That's manageable. But if you actually knew the secret—" She trailed off. Taiho stood and joined her at the window. "Then I'll find out myself." Over the next week, Taiho became obsessed. He spent every free moment researching Velan history. He contacted Do-Yun and asked him to dig through every database he could access, looking for information about Velan biology, their customs around masks. Anything unusual. Yuna provided genetic analysis, confirming what she had told him before. The similarities between Velan and human DNA were too precise to be coincidence. "It's like looking at evolutionary cousins," Yuna explained, showing him charts and genetic maps. "But that's impossible. We evolved on Earth. They evolved here thousands of light years away. There's no way our DNA should look this similar unless—" "Unless what?" Taiho pressed. "Unless one species came from the other," Yuna said slowly. "But that would mean either humans colonized this planet millions of years ago and evolved into Velans, or Velans came to Earth and became humans. Both scenarios are crazy. But were they?" Taiho thought about it constantly. The Velans had technology far beyond humanity's. They had faster-than-light travel that worked better than anything humans had developed. They had genetic engineering capabilities that seemed almost magical. What if they were older than anyone thought? Do-Shun called him one evening, his voice excited. "I found something. Old files, heavily encrypted, buried in public Velan databases. Most of it is corrupted, but I recovered fragments. Taiho, there are references to something called the Origin Protocol and mentions of throwback suppression programs. Whatever this is, it's big." That night, Taiho couldn't sleep. He paced his room thinking. Around 3 in the morning, his door chimed. Rena's voice came through the speaker. "Taiho, are you awake?" He opened the door. Rena stood there, wearing a simple mask now, not the elaborate biomask. In her hands, she held a data tablet. "I can't let you keep digging," she said. "You're going to get yourself killed. So I'm going to tell you everything. But once you know, there's no going back. You understand?" Taiho nodded. "I understand." They sat in the common area. Rena placed the data tablet on the table between them. On its screen were images, documents, genetic charts. "The Velans are human," Rena said quietly. "Or rather, they were human. 50,000 years ago." Taiho stared at her. "That's impossible, is it?" Rena asked. "Humans evolved on Earth, yes. But who says they stayed there? 50,000 years ago, ancient humans achieved faster-than-light travel. Not the crude version modern humans use now. Real FTL, capable of crossing the galaxy. They left Earth and colonized thousands of worlds." She pulled up images on the tablet. Ancient star maps. Ships that looked nothing like modern vessels. "These colonies spread across space," Rena continued. "They evolved separately, adapted to new worlds. changed through genetic engineering and natural evolution. After thousands of generations, they became something new. They became Velans. But you look human, Taiho said. Exactly human. Because I'm a throwback, Rena explained. Sometimes, rarely, the old genetic code expresses itself. A Velan is born looking like the original humans. It's considered a defect, a reminder of what we used to be. The Velan government has spent thousands of years trying to hide the truth about our origins. They want everyone to believe we're a superior species, evolved beyond humanity. Throwbacks are evidence that we're not superior. We're just modified humans. Taiho's mind raced. So the masks. Hide which of us are throwbacks, Rena finished. If everyone wears masks, no one can tell who looks human and who looks Velan. The custom became law, became religion, became unquestionable. And any throwback who reveals their face is eliminated. That's why you were so afraid when I saw you, Taiho said. Rena nodded. I volunteered for this marriage, hoping a human would understand, would see me as a person, not a defect. But I never planned to tell you the truth. It's too dangerous. Before Taiho could respond, his communication device beeped. It was Jiho, his brother, using an emergency frequency. Taiho, don't react to this message. Jiho's voice was tense. Your habitat is under surveillance. At least 6 Velan security officers watching from nearby buildings. I'm sending a team to extract you. Be ready to move in 10 minutes. Taiho looked at Rena. They're coming for us. Rena stood, suddenly calm. I knew they would. Once I pulled up those files, the security systems flagged it. Taiho, you need to leave with your brother. I'll stay and face them. Absolutely not, Taiho said. We leave together. If I run, it proves everything, Rena argued. It confirms I'm a throwback and that you know the truth. They'll hunt us both. But if I stay, if I claim you forced me to show you those files, they might only punish me. You could survive this. Taiho grabbed her hands. No, I'm not letting them take you. A new voice interrupted them. Smart choice. Both of them spun around. A Velan stood in their habitat, having somehow entered without triggering alarms. But this Velan was different. She wore no mask at all. Her face was clearly visible, and it was completely human. Who are you? Taiho demanded. My name is Sora, the Velan said. I'm part of the Resistance, a group of throwbacks and sympathetic Velans who want to end the masks and reveal the truth. I've been watching you both for weeks. How did you get in here? Rena asked. So, R.A. smiled. I have friends in security. Listen, we don't have much time. Kelver is planning to have you both arrested tonight. Arrested and disappeared. But we can get you out, hide you with the Resistance. Why would you help us? Taiho asked. Because you're exactly what we need, Sora said. A human from Earth married to a throwback. Living proof of the connection between our species. With your help, we can expose the truth to everyone, both Velans and Earth humans. Rena shook her head. That's suicide. Kelver controls the military. The moment we go public, they'll kill us all. Maybe, Sora admitted. Or maybe Earth's government will protect you. Maybe the truth will spread too fast to contain. It's a risk. But staying here is certain death. The building shook suddenly. An explosion somewhere close. Alarms began blaring. Sora's eyes widened. They're not waiting for arrest. Kelver's sent a military team. We need to go now. Taiho looked at Rena. She looked back at him, fear clear in her eyes. But also something else. Hope. Together? Taiho asked. Rena took his hand. Together. They ran for the emergency exit, Sora leading the way. as the sounds of armed soldiers echoed through the building behind them. The escape from the habitat was chaos. Sora led them through service corridors that Taiho never knew existed, moving fast while explosions rocked the building behind them. Rena stumbled once, and Taiho caught her, keeping her moving. They emerged into a loading bay where a transport vehicle waited. Jiho was there with 3 other human soldiers, weapons ready. When he saw Taiho, relief flooded his face. "Get in," Jiho shouted. "We've got about 30 seconds before Velen military locks down this sector." They piled into the transport. It lifted off just as armed Velen soldiers rounded the corner, firing energy weapons that scorched the pavement where they had been standing. The transport accelerated, weaving between buildings as pursuit vehicles gave chase. "Where are we going?" Taiho asked. "Human embassy compound," Jiho said. "It's protected by the treaty. They can't just attack it without starting a war." "Kelver doesn't care about treaties anymore," Sora said. She had removed her Velen robes, revealing simple clothes underneath. Without her mask, she looked like any human woman. "Once he decided to kill you both, he committed. He'll claim you were terrorists, spies, anything to justify it." The transport dodged another blast of energy fire. Through the windows, Taiho could see more Velen military vehicles joining the chase. This wasn't a quiet arrest anymore. This was an open attack. They made it to the embassy compound with seconds to spare. The transport crashed through the main gates as they were closing, skidding to a stop in the courtyard. Immediately, human security forces surrounded them, weapons pointed at the pursuing Velen vehicles. The Velen forces stopped at the embassy boundary. They couldn't cross without violating the treaty. For now, at least, Taiho and Rena were safe. Hana, the human diplomat, met them in the embassy main hall. She looked furious. "Do you have any idea what you've done?" She demanded. "The Velen government is claiming you kidnapped a Velen citizen and attacked the security forces. They're demanding we hand you over immediately." "It's all lies," Taiho said. "Hana, I need to show you something. It's going to sound impossible, but you need to see it." In a secure conference room with Jiho, Hana, and several other human officials present, Rena removed her mask. The humans in the room gasped. Then Sora removed hers as well. "What is this?" Hana whispered. "Some kind of trick?" "No trick," Taiho said. He pulled up the data files Rena had shown him, along with the genetic analysis from Yuna and the historical documents Doyun had recovered. "The Velens are human. They're our descendants from 50,000 years ago." For the next hour, they explained everything. The ancient human diaspora, the evolution and genetic modification that created the Velens, the throwbacks, the conspiracy to hide the truth. Hannah listened, her expression growing darker. When they finished, she sat in silence for a long moment. "If this is true," she finally said, "then the Velens have been lying to us from the beginning. The whole alliance is built on a false foundation." "Not entirely false," Rena said quietly. "Most Velens don't know the truth either. Only the high government and certain old families. They've maintained the lie for thousands of years." A human general named Kong, who had been listening quietly, slammed his fist on the table. "This is perfect. We use this information to expose them. Show everyone that our saviors are actually just evolved humans who've been manipulating us. The alliance ends. We take control of our own destiny." "No," Taiho said firmly. "That's not the answer." Kong glared at him. "You want to protect them? After they tried to kill you?" "I want to protect the truth," Taiho said. "Not twist it into a weapon. Yes, the Velen government lied. But the Velen people are victims too. They've been controlled and manipulated just like we have. Throwbacks like Rena and Sora have been hunted and killed for thousands of years. Starting a war helps no one. Then what do you suggest?" Hana asked Te, who looked at Rena, then at Sora. We tell everyone, both species. At the same time, we broadcast the truth across all communication networks before anyone can stop us. Let people decide for themselves what to do with the information. The Velen military will attack us the moment we start broadcasting, Kong warned. Maybe, Jiho said thoughtfully. Or maybe they won't. Right now, Kelver is acting in secret, claiming we're criminals. But if we broadcast the truth publicly, he has to respond publicly. He'll have to explain why throwbacks exist, why they're hunted. That might be harder than just killing a few people quietly. Yun, who had arrived at the embassy with computer equipment, spoke up. I can set up a broadcast. It will hit every major network simultaneously. Human and Velen. It'll take me a few hours to break through their security, but I can do it. Hana stood and walked to the window. Outside, Velen military vehicles surrounded the embassy, a Scylan threat. She was quiet for a long time, then turned back. This could start a war, she said. Or it could bring our species closer together. It's one hell of a gamble. Everything worthwhile is, Taiyo said. Hana nodded slowly. All right. We do it. But we do it right. Taiho, you'll speak for the humans. Rena, you speak for the throwbacks. Sora, you gather as many other throwbacks as you can. We need faces, stories, proof that this isn't just propaganda. Over the next 12 hours, they prepared. Sora contacted the Throwback Resistance Network, and slowly, carefully, other maskless Velens began arriving at the embassy. Each one had a story of hiding, of fear, of watching friends disappear when their true faces were discovered. Yuna and other human scientists prepared the genetic evidence. Do-Hyun worked on breaking into the broadcast networks. Jiho coordinated with human military forces, preparing for the possibility that Kelver would attack despite the treaty. Outside, the Velen military presence grew. More vehicles. More soldiers. Kelver was preparing for something. Finally, everything was ready. They gathered in a broadcast studio that Do-Hyun had set up. The room was filled with throwbacks, all with their masks removed. Rena stood at the center, with Taiho beside her. Once we start this, there's no going back, Hana warned. Taiho took Rena's hand. We're ready. Do-Hyun initiated the broadcast. Across the Velen homeworld and throughout human space, every screen, every communication device, suddenly showed the same image. Rena's face, clearly human, standing in a room full of other human-looking Velens. Taiho spoke first. His words were simple and direct. My name is Taiho. I'm a human from Earth. The woman beside me is my wife, Rena. She's a Velen, and as you can see, she looks exactly like a human. This isn't a trick or a mutation. This is the truth that your government has been hiding for thousands of years. Then Rena spoke, her voice steady despite her trembling hands. We are not two species. We are one family, separated by time, but connected by blood. 50,000 years ago, humans left Earth and spread across the galaxy. We evolved, we changed, we became what you now call Velens. I am a throwback. My genetics expressed the original human form. And for that, I've been hunted my entire life. One by one, the other throwbacks stepped forward, showing their faces, telling their stories. Do-Hyun then broadcast the genetic evidence, the historical documents, everything they had gathered. The proof was overwhelming. The broadcast lasted 20 minutes. When it ended, the world held its breath. For 5 seconds, nothing happened. Then the Velen military vehicles outside the embassy began to move. But they weren't attacking. They were withdrawing. Inside the embassy, communication systems exploded with activity. Messages poured in from across Velen space and human colonies. Some angry, some shocked, some grateful. The truth was spreading too fast to contain Dot, and somewhere in the Valen capital, Elder Kelver watched his carefully constructed lie fall apart. Powerless to stop it, the first 3 days after the broadcast were the most dangerous. Riots broke out in several Velen cities as people demanded answers. Some Velens were horrified to learn they were descended from humans, a species they had considered primitive. Others were angry at being lied to for millennia. Human colonies had mixed reactions too. Some celebrated the connection to the advanced Velens. Others felt betrayed that their saviors had hidden such a fundamental truth. Taiho and Rena stayed in the embassy compound, watching the chaos unfold on news feeds. Jiho's military team remained on high alert, ready for an attack that never came. The Velen military, it turned out, was divided. Many soldiers were throwbacks themselves, or had family members who were. They refused orders to suppress the protests. On the 4th day, the Velen government collapsed. Elder Kelver and his faction tried to maintain control, but their authority evaporated. A Velen official named Novin, who had secretly supported throwback rights for years, emerged as a leader of the reformist movement. He called for immediate talks with human representatives, and negotiations happened in the same ceremonial hall where Tayo and Rena had been married just a few weeks earlier. It felt like a lifetime ago. Novin removed his mask before the assembled crowd, revealing a face that was distinctly Velen, with elongated features and silver-tinted skin. But the gesture was what mattered. By removing his mask by choice, he showed that the old laws were dead. "We have lived in fear and lies for too long," Novin said, his voice broadcast across both civilizations. The masks we wore were not just physical. They were masks over our history, our identity, our very souls. Today, we remove all masks. Today, we remember that we are human, whether we look like Earth humans or have evolved into something different. Hannah stood beside him, representing Earth's government. "We are one species," she said, separated by time and space, but united by blood and heritage. The question now is not whether we are the same, but how we move forward together. Over the following weeks, a new government began to form, not just for Velens, but for all humans, Earthborn and otherwise. They called it the Human Collective. Representatives from Earth, from Velen worlds, and from other human colonies that had maintained contact with the Velens all joined together. Throwbacks were freed from hiding. Public mask removal ceremonies happened across Velen space, with millions watching as people revealed their true faces for the first time. Some looked completely human, like Rena and Sora. Others showed various degrees of Velen features. But all were welcomed. Te Ho worked with Yuna and other scientists to study the genetic connections between Earth humans and Velens. They made remarkable discoveries. The ancient humans who left Earth hadn't just colonized random worlds. They had followed a pattern, a map. There were likely hundreds of other human colonies out there, evolved in different ways, adapted to different worlds. "We could spend centuries finding all our lost cousins," Yuna said excitedly during one research meeting. "Imagine how many variations of humanity exist out there." Do-Hyun focused on recovering more historical data. The deeper he dug, the more he found. Evidence of an ancient human civilization that spanned the galaxy, far more advanced than either modern humans or Velens. They had fallen for unknown reasons, their colonies losing contact with each other, each developing separately. "We're not discovering alien species," Do-Yin explained to Taiho one evening. "We're rediscovering ourselves. Every alien we meet might just be another branch of the human family tree." 2 months after the broadcast, a public ceremony was held in the capital city's main plaza. Thousands gathered in person, with billions more watching across human space. Rena had been asked to speak, to represent throwbacks and the new era of openness. She stood on the platform looking out at the massive crowd. No mask, no veil. Just her face, human and unashamed. Tai-Ho stood beside her, offering silent support. "I was born into shame," Rena began. "I was taught that my face was a defect, a mistake, something to hide. I lived in fear every day that someone would see me and I would be eliminated. When I agreed to marry Tai-Ho, I thought I was volunteering for a political arrangement. I never imagined I would find freedom." She paused, looking at Tai-Ho with a small smile. Humans, both from Earth and from Velen worlds, share something important. We adapt. We survive. We connect. For 50,000 years, we were separated. We forgot each other. We even forgot ourselves. But the moment the truth was revealed, we didn't fall apart. We came together. Sora joined her on the platform, along with dozens of other former throwbacks. One by one, they removed ceremonial masks, a symbolic gesture since none of them wore masks anymore. "These masks represented fear," Sora said. "Fear of truth, fear of difference, fear of our own history. We removed them not with anger, but with hope. Hope that we can build something better. Something honest." The crowd erupted in cheers. Not just throwbacks, but regular Velans too, and humans from Earth colonies. They were all cheering for the same thing: unity, truth, family. After the ceremony, Tai-Ho and Rena returned to their habitat. It had been repaired after the attack, and they had decided to stay. It was their home now. They stood at the window, looking out at the city. Velans walked the streets below, many without masks now. The sight that had once been forbidden was becoming normal. "What do you think happens next?" Rena asked. "We search," Tai-Ho said, "for other lost colonies, other variations of humanity. We rebuild what was broken 50,000 years ago. That could take generations." "Probably," Tai-Ho agreed. "But we have time. And we have each other." Rena leaned against him, comfortable in a way she never had been in their first weeks together. "I used to think being a throwback was a curse. Now I think it was a gift. If I had looked like a normal Velen, if you had never seen my face, none of this would have happened." "Everything happens for a reason," Tai-Ho said. "Do you really believe that?" "I believe we make our own reasons," Tai-Ho said. "You chose to trust me. I chose to fight for the truth. Sora chose to help us. All those choices led here." Later that evening, Jiho visited with news. "We've received signals from 3 previously unknown colonies, all claiming to be descendants of Earth humans, all wanting to join the collective. 3 more branches of the family tree," Tai-Ho said. Jiho grinned. "And that's just the beginning. Long-range scans suggest there could be dozens more out there, maybe hundreds. The galaxy is full of humans, and we're just starting to find each other again." After Jiho left, Do-Yun called with his own update. "I found something in the ancient databases. Records of why the original human civilization fell. There was a war. Not with aliens, but between different human factions. They nearly destroyed themselves. The colonies that survived, like the ones that became Velens, lost contact with Earth and each other. They forgot they were all human and started over. So we've done this before," Tai-Ho said. "Divided ourselves, fought each other, forgot our connections. And now we're remembering," Do-Yun said. "Maybe this time we do it better." Tai-Ho thought about that after the call ended. Humans had spread across the galaxy once before, only to fragment and forget. Now they were finding each other again. The Velans, once thought to be superior aliens, were revealed as evolved humans. The throwbacks, once hunted as defects, were celebrated as bridge, ease between past and present, Standing at the window with Rena beside him, Tayo looked up at the